seated. Today is All Saints Sunday, and it's the time in the church year when we remember and celebrate those who have gone before us. In our lessons today, we heard the Beatitudes from Jesus' Sermon on the Mount. The Beatitudes is Jesus' worldview. That is to say, it's how God sees the world, how God intends the world to be. The saints see the world just like God and Jesus see the world, where poor and meek are inheritors of God's kingdom, where mercy and justice are the regular order of things. Saints are people who live and move in this world as if that kingdom of heaven that Jesus has preached about was already here. And that is how we get closer to the fullness of the world envisioned by the Beatitudes, by seeing and speaking and moving through this world as if God's kingdom is already here. Well, it's not All Saints Sunday without singing I Sing a Song of the Saints of God. We just did it. We fulfilled all righteousness. I'm sure many, if not all of you, are familiar with that song. And as you know, and you know how it goes, but just as a reminder, what we just sang, the last verse ends, "For the saints of God are just folk like me, and I mean to be one too." I've been singing that song for 34 years. And most of the time, I've never really thought too hard about what does it mean when I say, and I mean to be a saint too. But on deeper reflection, and maybe others could relate, I mean to be a saint too, well, that's kind of in the same category as I mean to train and run in a marathon. I mean to write a book. I mean to finally become fluent in biblical Greek. That is to say, I think what most of us mean when we mean to be a saint is that it would be nice to be a saint. But it also seems difficult. It takes a lot of effort over a long time, a lifetime even, and we don't really know how to start in the first place. But let's take that song seriously. Let's take meaning to be a saint seriously. Because the saints were folks like you and me, after all. All those doctors and queens and shepherdesses, they were real historical people. So if we mean to be a saint too, what should we do? Well, I'm going to offer that there's three things. There might be more, but at least three things that we need to do to be a saint. Know ourselves, find our community, and give your life. Becoming a saint must include knowing one's self, discerning our various gifts and talents, and developing and strengthening and using those gifts. Now, this part can be tricky because it's really easy to slip from knowing ourselves to slip from becoming oneself to becoming what we think other people think we should be, what we think the world tells us we ought to be. But we can't live by the world. We have to become ourselves, who God made us to be. God made all of us, the saints and those who mean to be saints. He made all of us unique. We all have different strengths and weaknesses, different gifts to contribute. So getting to know ourselves and be ourselves must be an early part of the lifetime-long work of meaning to be a saint. Becoming a saint also includes finding your people and finding your community. Saint Benedict knew something about community. He wrote a whole book on how people can live in an intentional community together, and people are still using that book to order their common lives together to this day. And John Donne, the poet, he's one of our saints too. He has a feast day on March 31st, and he's famous for writing, "No man is an island entire of itself. Every man is a piece of the continent, a part of the main." If part of becoming a saint is living fully into who God created and intends us to be, then finding community is essential. Now, this is a really tough lesson for us to hear, especially us as Americans, because our society values independence and self-reliance above almost anything else. But hear this: there is no such thing as being 100% independent, 100% self-reliant. You can't be you by yourself. To see my point, consider it from this exaggeration. Say that you were the last person on earth. Everyone else goes away. No one else exists except you. You could not be fully yourself. There's so many elements that are core to our identity, that are essential to who we are, that are relational. I'm a son, a grandson, a brother, a priest, a friend, a colleague, a teammate, a cousin, and a godfather. These are parts of me, but they require you guys. They require my people, my community, for me to be me. And you have all of these relationships as part of your core identity too. St. Irenaeus wrote, "The glory of God is the human person fully alive." We can't be the person God fully intends us to be without each other. And not only that, community is essential because it supports us. Saints carry others when they need to be carried, but more importantly, they are humble enough to let others carry them too when they need that help. People are lonelier and more isolated than ever in our world. And many of the saints, like those capital S saints that are going to come out of our time, well, it's going to be people who excel at bringing people together, healing division, and fostering community. So becoming a saint must include finding your community, finding your place in God's family. And finally, becoming a saint must include figuring out what we will give our lives for. Now, this might sound dramatic at first, and while there are saints who literally give their lives, we call those saints martyrs, I don't think that most, if any of us, who mean to be saints in this room today are called to be a martyr. But we all each have one life to spend in this world. So what will you spend your life on? The world will tell us to spend our lives pursuing esteem, affection, wealth, and power. The world will tell us to spend our lives living for ourselves alone. But that's not the way of the saints. The way of the saints is not living for ourselves, but living our lives to glorify God and to help those who come after us. If we know ourselves, if we know our gifts and talents, our faults and weaknesses, and if we know our community and where we fit in with our different groups, then those together can help us know where to spend our lives. You see, this pattern of becoming a saint is nothing more than following Jesus. Jesus walked the same path in his life, and the saints who came before us, well, they were just following Jesus. Jesus was baptized, and it was revealed that he is God's son. That is who Jesus is. And that drove him to the desert for 40 days with all the trials and temptations and struggles that come with knowing and becoming yourself. Next, Jesus finds his community, his people, and his unconditional love extends the circle of who is included in God's family to absolutely everyone: outcasts, lepers, tax collectors, and sinners. Jesus not only had his larger community, he had his closest friends, his disciples, whom he gathers and teaches. He reveals his whole self to them in the Transfiguration. He breaks bread with them, prays with them. He washes their feet. And they try to support him in his darkest times, though admittedly the disciples were far from perfect. Finally, Jesus gives his life for the whole world so that others can share in this life-giving way of living. Find yourself, find your people, give your life. It's the way that Jesus walked and all the saints and souls that have followed after him. It's the way we are all walking right now at St. Mark's. The funny thing is while we mean to be saints, we will never know if we actually become a saint or not. Saints are not saints for the benefit of themselves or for their own honor. The saints' only role is to inspire those who come after them. By the time we get there, we won't care if we're a saint or not, because becoming a saint just to become one is not the point. Following Jesus in his life-giving way of self-giving love is all that matters. Amen.